Namaste, Namaskaram, Vanakkam, Namo Namaha, Jai Ganesha. Please visit our website at classicalyoga.org, and there's a donate button there if you find these videos and podcasts to be helpful to you. We could use your help. Every little bit helps. So it's early morning here at the ashram, so I thought we'd do one on a path to wisdom. Not the path, but a path to wisdom. We're going to focus on the Yoga Sutras. And remember, the Yoga Sutras, Yoga Darshana, the Raja Yoga of Patanjali, is one of the 6 orthodox systems of Hindu philosophy. Remember, Nyaya, Visesika, Mimamsa, Vedanta, Sankhya, Yoga. And sadly, like so much of the Hindu Yoga Dharma, and Hindus are at fault for not standing up for the Dharma, it has been totally distorted almost beyond recognition. But we're going to look there at 2 types of samadhi. But before we do that, let's look at something that we developed here at the ashram called the Panch Ayur Tattvas. Panch is 5. Ayur, you may recognize that word. Life. Tattvas, principles. Panch Ayur Tattvas. 5 life principles. And speaking of Ayur, you've heard of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is literally the life of the Vedas. In other words, if someone were to say that we were teaching the life of the Bible, you would expect classes in Christianity. But like yoga, Ayurveda has been turned into some kind of a vague spiritual healing process or something. But if you read the actual Ayurvedic text, in the very beginning, it says the most important remedy for all of our illnesses is bhakti yoga, and specifically devotion to Hindu deities. And remember, that is what true Hatha Yoga, the proper title, is all about. It's worshipful postures to Hindu deities. So let's look at 5 vital life principles. And a good way to start off a discussion like this, remember, this is called a path to wisdom, and looking at the 2 types of samadhi presented in the Yoga Sutras. Just ask yourself, or ask another if appropriate, would you wish to be considered unwise? Of course not. So let's look at wisdom. And watch how these build upon each other. So wisdom, by definition, is the ability to discern or recognize difference. Not sameness, but difference. This is wisdom. There's Kuchanavi, little Navi. Hi, honey. She recognizes the difference in things right away. Our animals can teach us sometimes more than we humans are willing to admit. They recognize timing. They recognize the difference in things. So the ability to discern or recognize difference is wisdom, by definition. That's 1. 2, judgment. Think of the New Age cliche, do not judge, which is basically a judgment. But what is judgment? By definition, the ability to make wise decisions. Hence, sound judgment. And certainly all of you out there, especially parents, you want your children to make wise, sound judgments, wise decisions, sound judgments, especially when they start dating, when they get behind the wheel of a car, right? Make good decisions, sound judgments. Judgment, the ability to make wise decisions. Number 3, critical thinking. I love this one. This definition is so pregnant with meaning. And, of course, thinking is good. But there's times when we need to really do some deep, serious thinking. Just like, there's a time for first aid, but there's a time for the critical care unit in the hospital. So critical thinking is, and hopefully you're writing these down, the need to distinguish between rational and irrational beliefs through logic and a thorough testing of the claims made. That's worth repeating. Critical thinking is the need to distinguish between rational and irrational beliefs through logic and a thorough testing of the claims made. which leads us right into step 4. What is logic? Notice that was in the definition of critical thinking. What is logic and reasoning? Well, if we look to classic logic, it is perception, inference, comparison, testimony. This is all basically the scientific process where we start with a hypothesis and end up with a conclusion after testing and double-blind studies. So to arrive at a logical conclusion, exercise perception, inference, comparison, testimony. You see it, and then you infer, you do your homework, inference, and then you compare it, and then you get final testimony. You can apply this to anything that you do in life. So this is great when you're purchasing something like a vehicle, for example. You perceive it, and then you do your homework, you check out the specs, then you compare it perhaps with other models, and then you finally get testimony from somebody perhaps who has one. And then you're pretty safe at arriving at a pretty safe conclusion. So, logic and reasoning. And actually this is the first of the Shad Darshanas, the 6 orthodox systems of Hindu philosophy, the Nyaya philosophy, the logic of logic. So if it is logical, it should be found no matter what language we speak. So for example, in the Sanskrit of the Nyaya philosophy, the same perception, inference, comparison, testimony we find in Prataksha, Anumana, Upamana, Sabta. Same thing, perception, inference, comparison, testimony, Prataksha, Anumana, Upamana, Sabta, respectively. Now it's interesting, as we move into the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali uses this, but he tweaks it a little bit. He uses Prataksha and Anumana, but no Upamana, no comparison, because he was only teaching the basic Hindu yoga dharma. And then instead of just anyone's simple testimony, sabda, he uses the testimony of the agamas, the Saiva scriptures, Prataksha, Anumana, Agama. Very interesting. So step 5 in our Panch Ayur Tattvas is always discern between generalities and specifics. This is really important because we often make this mistake. For example, exercise, stretching is a very general, using English obviously, is a very general form of exercise. Hatha Yoga, however, is very specific. These are Hindu devotional postures. People do this all the time. We're all guilty of it to one degree or another, confusing generalities and specifics. Devotion, for example, is a very general term. But we all know that Mass and Eucharist are specifically Christian and specifically Catholic Christian. Puja, however, Sandhya, Bhakti Yoga, this is all about the Hindu yoga dharma or the Hindu religion. So here we have our Panch Ayur Tattvas, our 5 basic life principles: wisdom, judgment, critical thinking, logic and reasoning, and generalities and specifics. Okay, now let's jump into the Yoga Sutras. And this really capitalizes on what we just talked about, because in this classic scripture of Hinduism, and remember, Patanjali was a Saiva Hindu guru, and he was teaching Hindu male renunciate yogis in training. Now, we can use it as a manual for anybody really to study in depth about the Hindu yoga dharma, but that really was his target audience. And we know that because in the yamas and niyamas, which have been twisted beyond recognition by those with an agenda to separate the Yoga Sutras from Hinduism, and he mentions brahmacharya, which is celibacy, male celibacy, brahmacharya. Pratishtayam virya labhyaha. And also a parigraha, 9 receiving, which is what the true yogi does. They don't receive anything. And then you go on into niyama, saucha, which is actually becoming disgusted with one's own body and the body of others. Wow. It's very in-depth, and it's so sad. We have a whole podcast on the Yoga Sutras, so you can research that. And we go through the Yoga Sutras from the original Sanskrit, and you'll see how they've been distorted today. So in these Yoga Sutras, Patanjali talks about 2 types of samadhi. And samadhi is our Sanskrit Hindu word for calm wisdom. See how this was predicated upon by the Panchayur Tattvas. Wisdom was the first one. Do we want to be considered unwise? I don't think so. 2 types of wisdom, calm wisdom. And there you go, progressively, like everything does in the Yoga Sutras, step by step, pade, 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 or thread by thread, more appropriately, sutra by sutra, thread by thread. That's how we create, any of these fabrics. We start with one single thread, which is very delicate and easily broken, but you combine them all together, and you follow a methodical procedure, and you come up with a finished fabric that becomes very strong. You can use that analogy for group dynamics, for example. So the 2 types of samadhi, and progressively, as they go from one to the other, and we'll see that this is really the understanding basically of religion and spirituality in that progression. Religion is the beginning. That's the rules and the regulations and the rituals that lead one to the more incorporeal experiences. Remember, spirit means incorporeal, so literally no body is spiritual. It's a religious process that many poo-poo, if you will, that will actually take you. It's like a mountain path. The path is the religion. And the goal is obviously to get to the top, but how are you going to get to the top if you don't have a path? So you choose one. You choose one of the established religious traditions of the world, or you can make a brand new one, that's fine, but don't steal from already established ones like we see today in the spurious or phony yoga movement, where they're stealing everything from Hinduism. So we start with the first samadhi, which is called samprajnata samadhi, which means with seed, and then the second one is asamprajnata, without seed. And the analogy here, again, is that first you have to start with a seed. You plant the seed, then you go and progressively go on into the deeper experiences of the asamprajnata samadhi. So first things first. And watch how this goes. Very similar to our Panchayur Tattvas. Step 1, reason. Step 2, judgment. Step 3, a sense of true joy or bliss, which develops a purified ego. Vitarka, vichara, ananda, asmita. Sa vitarka, sa vichara, sa ananda, sa asmita. With reason. With judgment. Again, for all those who say do not judge, Patanjali says it right there, judgment. Then find out what is true ananda or bliss, rather than just temporary pleasures, which has their result in pains. The more pleasure, the more pain, in many ways. And then this all develops a positive ego. Remember, we don't want to destroy the ego. That's ridiculous. We want to purify. Make it your best friend instead of your worst enemy. Asmita. You turn ahamkara into asmita. Savitarka, savichara, sa ananda, sa asmita. Exercise reason and judgment, and then find out what is bringing you true joy in life, lasting, wholesome joy and bliss, ananda, which is actually the bliss of the Atmana. Tattvamasi, aham brahmasmi, aham atma asi. Starts with that realization, doesn't it? That is really what the Hindu Yoga Dharma is all about in 3 simple Sanskrit words. Tattvamasi, that thou art. We are the Atmana of love and light and energy, Jyoti Shakti Ananda Shanti. Ananda Shanti. This realization purifies the ego, asmita. So you've planted the seed, samprajnata samadhi. Now we go into the fulfillment of that which results in Shraddha. So the first type of samadhi had 4 steps. Second one, asamprajnata samadhi, has 5 steps. Now we have full faith in what we're doing, full faith in the Hindu Yoga Dharma, Shraddha. And then we're developing a warrior spirit, just like Muruganji right there, and Hanuman and Krishna, Durga Ma, the youthful loving warriors, Vira. Shraddha, Virya. Then we have developed a profound memory. All of this is locked into the brain, right? It's nice to have notes and all of that and read books, etc. But you really want to have this deeply impregnated in your subconscious mind. Smriti. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, then you have an even deeper experience of samadhi or calm wisdom. But there's a step after that. Why? Because you have to give back now. From your experiences of samadhi, in a sense, top of the head, you come down to prajna, at the bindu, and now you're able to perceive and give that out to others. You have to return the gift of samadhi. So shraddha, virya, smriti, samadhi, prajna. A path to wisdom. Beginning with panch ayur tattvas, with wisdom, exercising sound judgment, critical thinking, logic and reasoning, always discerning between generalities and specifics. Now you're ready for, again, in the Yoga Sutras, deeper understanding of reasoning, vitarka, sound judgment, vichara. Understand what is true bliss, ananda, purifies the ego, asmita. Now you're ready to go even deeper into a full faith from experience. Remember, faith is built. It starts with hope, and it's built through time into a guarantee. You know that it's just the right thing. Same thing with our beliefs. Remember, they start out as assumptions, but we don't want to just stay there, and we don't want to just stay in hope. We want to take our beliefs and our faiths to a conviction, to a guarantee. This is the process. Shraddha. Then you develop that warrior spirit, vira. Then you have a profound, profound memory. And the most important one, like why we have Ganapati as the first deity, the Muladhara chakra, memory, right? Don't forget who you are. Tattvamasi, aham brahmasmi, thou art that. We are the Atman of love, light, and energy. Jyoti Shakti Ananda Shanti. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, and then a deeper form of samadhi, which is calm wisdom. Remember, wisdom was the ability to discern difference between what's real and what's not real. 2,000 years ago, in the Brihat Aranyaku Upanishad, the Rishi said, Asato ma sadgamaya, just as relevant today. Discern, wisdom, the first one. Asato ma sadgamaya, discern between what is unreal and real, or untrue and true, or phony and true, spurious and true. What's real yoga? Real yoga is all about the Hindu yoga dharma. Asat yoga is the opposite. 3 simple things. Real yoga is all about the Hindu dharma, taught by Hindus and not for a fee. Asat yoga is not taught in a Hindu context, not taught by Hindus, and it's basically a business. Wisdom. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, deep, calm wisdom. Now you give back, prajna, spiritual perception. So let's for a moment look at these 2 types of samadhi, and we can take them backwards. So, if we're not able to give back, why is that? Well, we haven't had in-depth samadhi. If we haven't had in-depth samadhi, it's because we really, truly haven't remembered who we were. Smriti. We haven't really remembered who we were, or discovered that, because we haven't yet developed the warrior spirit, vira. We don't have the warrior spirit because we're yet shaky in our faith. We're not full of faith, or shraddha. And we don't have full faith yet because we're still working to purify our ego. It's a work in progress, life after life. And we don't have a purified ego because we're still stuck in temporary sukha dukkha, pleasure and pain. We really haven't found out what is giving us true and more lasting, wholesome joy and happiness and bliss, ananda. And we don't have that true joy and bliss because we have yet to figure out what is good judgment. We haven't developed that sound judgment. And we don't have sound judgment because Step one, we were not being very reasonable. We were illogical, perhaps swept away by our emotional nature. So it all starts with really a left brain understanding of the importance of reason and logic, rituals, rules, regulations. This is all the religious process that many people walk against, fight against. But again, we all must find a path that suits us. And maybe the one that you're on doesn't suit you. Okay, find another one, right? You can find one of the established religious traditions of the world, of which there are many. Or perhaps you may blaze a new path. That's up to you. But it would be new. You wouldn't be stealing from already established religious traditions, like today's so-called yoga. So I hope this has been inspiring to all of you as we seek to have more wisdom in our life. So hopefully this has been a path to wisdom for you. But again, like any path, it's up to us to walk the path. The path is there, but it's up to us to take the first step, and then the next step, and the next step, and keep going. Use the wisdom of Ganapati as the elephant, right? Just keep going. Have that strength to just go pade, pade, step by step by step, thread by thread by thread, sutra by sutra, as you're weaving this wonderful fabric of your totality, of the whole being of who you are. Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, Jyoti Shakti Ananda Shanti, love, light, and energy. Om, this are we, with emotions, mind, and body. And then send out that love and light and energy to others. Wish them an auspicious life and a peaceful life and a full life, a tranquil life. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu. Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu. Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. And wish your fellow human beings to be free from any undue sickness and harm. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. As we go from untruth to truth, astato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotir gamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya, seeking a peace and wisdom, samadhi, through strength and justice. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. Om Namaste. Om.